So, good evening, chess lovers all over the world. We have the Atomis Airport open, the IM and the GM closed tournament starting in Hotel Atomis in Munich, which I would say is more like a sequel for the Munich Chess Festival, the big one that happened last May and June. And now this will become the second part of the big festival, more like a Christmas and a New Year open and closed tournaments. So this year we have a good bit of mix of IAMs and GMs and the open happening here in Munich. The first round, the GM tournament started a little while ago. We have Ashot Parvanyan playing Edward Miller in the first board. So you could see that the play has taken place quite rapidly, and it's kind of the King's Indian setup that one can see, and Black is already shaping up to put something on the king side, and Ashot had actually shown a little bit of aggression, playing g4 early on. Maybe a little later he may move his queen around and castle long to push everything on the king side. So presently, with the time control of 90 minutes with 30-second increment and a single finish, this is going to be quite an exciting affair. And on board 2, we have Zaur Hassanov playing with Ashwath S. You can see that the French and Ashwath is the Indian junior who is in very fine form. A couple of months ago, he won the big Grand K Open in Karlsruhe ahead of a lot of GMs, and he has got 2 GM norms to his credit, and with an ELO, starting ELO of 2488. And some time back, he had already crossed the 205 mark, and he would require only 1 GM norm to complete his GM title requirements. So he's a young talent from India, and his family is into chess right through for a long, long time. His dad is himself a chess coach called A.C. Siva from the southernmost part of the country in Kanyakumari, which is the tip of India. And then his sister also plays some chess. So the whole family is hooked into the game. Ashwath these days works with one of India's leading and successful coach, GM Shyam Sundar, who incidentally is also playing the GM closed tournament today. So the game has a little bit taken off into the French, and as we all know, French has been patronized by legends like Victor Korchnoi, who has played it right through his whole life. Probably more than 1,000 games he has played in French, and probably next to the Sicilian, it is one opening that gives Black a fighting chance to go all out for a win. So it shows the fighting attitude of the young boy. So here it's roughly very, very equal, and quite possibly you can say that an early trade-off of at least one knight is on the cards. And then black would try to develop his knight, and then followed by a bishop. Of course, the c8 bishop is still needs to find its way out. And it will always be advisable not to kind of underestimate any player, because even while we were checking into the position, we could see that the trade-off has happened, and in a likely bit of a larger scale. So Hassanal Tsar captured the queen, and then Ashwath decided to go for a queenless middle game. So quite a simple start, and then it shows the good bit of confidence the Indian junior has in its own middle and end games, because he decided to go without the queen, which itself shows that he's quite confident going into a queenless middle game. Let us now shuffle into the third board, where Duong Quang Bach is playing Moritz Steutner. Sicilian game. You could see that both white and black are pushing each other, trying to get one up in the opening itself. But still, I would say it gives probably a very tiny edge to white. But it's still a very, very long way to go. It's early on, and you could see that both white and black have lashed out their moves quite quickly, and black has, in fact, now has 3 more minutes than what they started at the beginning of the game. So quite likely the turnout could further become something like this, and so like the game earlier one that we saw a little while ago, this could also maybe turn out to be something like queenless one. And then, of course, the next game is between 2 grandmasters, Shyam Sundar Mohanraj from India, and then Igor Glek playing under the Belgian flag. So Igor has been, of course, a veteran, and then you've seen that he's been playing well for quite a long time. So we could see a very quiet start, and possibly another French. Igor has chosen to go for a fractured kingside. He has captured the f6 square, the pieces traded off by his pawn. So you could see that he has gone for a big hole on the king side. So it's not likely that he would castle king side, and then since the queen side is open as well, it could be something where we could see that it's going to be probably a king in the center for black. And then we come to the fifth and the final game of the GM Closed tournament. We have Durag Khan playing Axel Gergely. A quick look into the game will give us an idea. So, the Grandmaster from Budapest. Came up with the usual stuff. The Queen's Gambit, that's been one of the oldest openings, and a solid one for black. And we can see that black is trying to balance it's some dynamic play, and he's played pretty fast as well, and added up a 10-minute advantage already into the game. But still, it's way too far to go. I will now go into the I am close and see how things are turning out there. The first board, we could see that Zuferi Enis playing with Lukas Steitner. A quick look into the game, and then you could see that again Queen's Gambit. Pretty much even start, but you could see that C3 pawn is up for grabs, but black is deliberating, not going for that, because the bishop is under a pin, and but then he can capture the pawn and then attack the queen. So, but white might probably get more space advantage and try to push something very fast on the king side, which could be the reason why Lukas is a little hesitant not to capture the pawn on c3. The second board, we have a young Indian boy, Darshan, playing the tested Catalan. Playing white is Nikolaos Petriashvili, and facing him is the Indian junior Darshan, who has 2,100 plus live ELO rating. So the boy has been playing circuits regularly in Europe, and he was there last summer playing the third Munich Open. Now he's come back to play this closed tournament with an eye on the IM norm. Let's now go into the third board between Petro Loginau and Kulner Ruben Gideon. Oh, this one, not a surprise, where the trade-off has taken place of the queen as early as the fifth move, which means that white would want to drag black into a middle game where the opening is not going to be the big say. So you could see that by way of a pin on bishop on b4, black is trying to crack down the safety net around the white king. And in the next board, you could see that we have another Indian junior, Hemant Ram, who already had one IM norm, and then he has been playing the circuit in Budapest, where he made best efforts but missed narrowly the IM norm. And then from Budapest, the whole contingent traveled yesterday and reached Munich today to play the IM, GM close and the open tournament. And today he has started his game with Robert Zisk playing with the white pieces. So the Tarrasch opening is what Hemant has given for the opponent, and right now they have both played pretty quickly, consuming just about 15 minutes among them so far, and holding just about an equal position. Maybe a little better is probably the white, because the white pieces are on the move, and they have found a better location compared to the black, which still needs to complete the development. Quite possibly the game could go on something like this. When you could see that black will quickly complete its development, and then start better plans for a win. As we move on to the fifth and final board, we have Walter Richard playing the white pieces against Elias Underlich, who is playing the black. You could see that the game has run away with almost more than a dozen moves in a double quick time. More like a Reti structure. We could say that both white and black have been prepared. And here, despite the chance to trade off the queens, white refrained from doing it. So black immediately grabbed the chance and then found a way to take the queen away from the board for better reasons. So it's still roughly very equal, and maybe the c8 bishop would need to find a good way to come out, after which the open diagonal will be contested between the black and white rooks, and it could possibly become more than equal into the middle game, because Walter has some bit of a space advantage, not really much, but Elias Wunderlich will try to work it out to neutralize the advantage that Walter might have grabbed so far. We will now move on to the open section, where the top 6 boards are still available live. And here we see Thomas Hiffelsauer playing with TL Nickel in the top board. So the first game in the open section is being played between Thomas Hiffelsauer and TL Nickel. Here we could see that it's another game where a double quick queen trade-off, leaving black with a backward double pawn. But then there is still nothing to worry about, because the position has remained extremely equal so far, even after roughly about 30 minutes of play. But in case Thomas has different ideas, then I could say that only sky is the limit. Could very well try to explore the possibilities of improving herself into a better chess title holder, because these events are mostly ones which give big chances for these kids to improve upon their ratings and also grab the IM or GM norm, as the case may be. So, and it keeps throwing up surprise packets. As we now move on to the second board, between Novak Jakoslav and Thomas Reich. Novak surprised his opponent, playing the f4. Normally, nobody weakens the king with the first move, but then there is some daring play also possible sometimes between some players. So I could see that Novak, carrying the first name of the legend Novak Djokovic, the multiple times tennis Grand Slam champion, and could be the GOAT of tennis when he hangs up his shoes. So this Novak Jakoslav shares the first name with a famous contemporary, and then quite maybe inspired by him has played the f4, one f4, the first move not to be seen frequently across the board. And Rich Thomas is not one to be taken aback. So we could see that it has evolved into a decent middle game, where both white and black engage in some bit of piece play. A little bit of hesitancy in grabbing the center, and go slow attitude from white, so that black grabbed the initiative, and then maybe it's even slightly better at this point of time. We can see that the trade-off of the fianchettoed bishop has, in fact, nullified black's, mid-game advantage a little bit. And since the knight on a3 is under attack, we could possibly see that the knight will first be moved away to safety before anything could be done. Of course, there is a pawn grab which is available on b5, but then it is going to be a small test, because grabbing the pawn there would leave the position open, with black carrying the possibility of getting two pieces for a rook. So because the knight captures the pawn and the rook captures the knight, and the bishop on e2 goes on to capture the rook. So it will end up with two minor pieces gone for white, in lieu of the pawn and the rook that was gone for Thomas Reich. So I'm sure it will not be an easy decision to make, because the two pieces are two pieces, whatever be the situation. So we could see that it will put Thomas Reich in some kind of a dilemma as to whether he could expand his queen side, before which white will have to come to a conclusion whether he would want to go for the pawn capture. We will now go into the board number 3 on the open section, where Namik Krasnikov is playing Wolf Calvin. We could see that more than a dozen moves have been played so far in the game. The famed Rylopus makes its appearance probably after almost 13 games. We have 5 on the OIM section, 5 on the GM section, and then this is the third game that we are happening to have a look at in the open section. So we could see that the Rylopus makes its appearance, and again yet another game where the trade-off of queens is happening in double quick time. We could see that black Calvin Wolf has managed to drag Namik Krasnikov's king out in the open. So despite having a roughly an equal position, the dangerous position that the white king is there cannot be ignored, and that would probably give black a very thrilling bit of position to play. It still could come as a surprise that multiple pieces got exchanged in the middle game in a jiffy, leaving Krasnikov and Wolf to go for playing double rook and knight endgame, which is a relatively a dry choice. But then sometimes players would really want to start off the tournament in a very positive note, either with a win or with a draw. So in this case, we could see that the win has to come if white can squeeze out something out of the end game, because right now, despite being saddled with a doubled pawn on the c file, black has got no great worries. So it will be slowly expanding itself, and only as the games keeps going, you will be able to see how the players want to carry out the opening into the middle game and later into the end game. But right now we could see that the advanced king, which could have become a disadvantage if the queens were still around, has managed to come all the way to e3. Quite possibly it could also come under a huge artillery of attack, because any king out in the open is always a target, and the Krasnikov's king is no different. As we move on to the next game, we could see that it's between Birke Dennis and we could see that the game between Birke Dennis and Jochen Schwalman has started up with a regular pace, and the typical Berlin game saw that white and black both have kind of a even position on hand. It's roughly neither is better, but still a lot to play for, because you still have a rook, two knights and a bishop for both the players, and more than an hour and 20 minutes on the clock. So definitely still a lot to play for, and I'm sure neither player would pick up a draw here. And the next game that we could see in the open section is between Ferdinand Pettelzberger and Stuart Christopher. This one is Caro Khan, favorite of former world champions Anatoly Karpov and Tigran Petrosyan, who would have played hundreds of games with these openings, and considered to be an extremely solid one that doesn't offer white great scope other than for equality. But then we will see how the opening phase went. You could see that a double quick trade-off by black and white both has only resulted in we could see that some kind of symmetry in position, with black choosing to go for a trade-off that would leave Stuart Christopher with two rooks, queen, bishop on knight, facing two rooks, queen, and two bishops. So quite likely we could see that since the queens are around, we could very well see it could still be a big fight on hands, unless the queens get traded off, which I'm sure white might not want to do. So if still trade-offs are on the mind of black, they could possibly think of the queen and maybe one rook, but it's still quite early days. We'll now go to the final digital bowl in the open section between David Kovacs and David Sedelmaier. So the game between two Davids is a Sicilian fight out. Whereby both the players are sticking to their opening theory, and since neither player is willing to expand either on the king side or queen side, we aren't seeing any weaknesses or any ball from the blue, either for the Sicilian, that as we know is more famous to produce the results, but here it's still just a little out of the opening, and white has played only 12 moves so far. But the battery of white pieces are all focused on the queen side, so that any type of a material grab that comes up could go the white's way. But the pieces of white are probably clustered, and they would need to kind of release themselves a bit early, because black has got good possibilities of developing the bishop on b7, and then the knight sitting on f6 and d7 could also jump into, one of them could jump into c5, and these are things that should bother white a bit. Having looked at all the games that was live broadcast, 16 of them, 5 on the GM section, 5 on the IM section, and 6 on the open, we will now get back to the GM closed tournament. The first board that we had seen a little while ago between Ashat Parvanyan and Edward Miller is shaping up quite well. I could say that the battle is really on, and then the open king side of white is of not a big bother, because white, as we could say, that has been trying to make a breakthrough on the king side, where the defensive pieces are not so much around. They are more like offside, where in case of a critical danger, black might end up facing the music. So black needs to be extremely careful, because white is throwing everything on the black, and the second game, as we had seen a little while ago, is between a rising Indian star Ashwath and Tsar Hasanov. Hasanov has the white pieces, and the French game had shaped up quite well when we saw a little while ago, when the queen trade-off had just then happened. And unafraid of a shatter of the pawn structure on the f6, black Ashwath, who has a rating of 2488, and having drawn a multiple number of grandmasters on his way to, achieving 2 sets of GM norms. So we could see that this boy is daring lock, stock, and barrel, and his castle on the queen side is really pulling up his opponent for a challenge. So go all out. And even capturing the knight on f6 could possibly become a very dangerous move, because this open file on the g file could in fact turn to be one possible outpost where black, along with the two bishops, could trigger a huge series of attacks which can possibly make the game go in favor of black. So by castling long, black has indicated that it is willing to, go for a slugfest, and white with two bishops and a knight and a large area of space is definitely going to not leave it easy. But presently the position looks absolutely equal, but with the multitude of possibilities. We could always note that change could happen. And moving on to the next Grandmaster game, that between Moritz Stittner and Duong Bach. We could see that the black is a very interesting player who wouldn't mind black having a wholesome weakness on the king side, because despite having the knight on g3, which possibly took a long time for white to come up with a clear plan. So maybe when the knight on g3 gets kicked out or traded off for a bishop, then things could possibly move a little sharper, until such time a discovered attack on the queen by moving the knight to d5 would result in possibly result in white trying to get an upper hand, and Duong Quang Bach tried to put one up on Moritz Steitner, who is trying to pull down whatever little advantage that white might have got out of the opening. But still, the bishop on f8 is still not out of the starting blocks, and a quick castle will do black a world of good. So we could see that an nd5, a possible move for white, would see one another queen trade-off, and it could possibly result in a queenless middle game, as we saw in many other games so far. Could possibly be a queen trade-off day today, when we could see that the repeat of grabbing the queens and getting them out of the board is looking like the order of the day today. And the next one we can go is between two sharp grandmasters, that of Shyam Sundar Mohanraj and Igor Gleck, who is playing for Belgium. So the Indian grandmaster is a very deceptive kind of attacking person. So it would not help Igor to roughly underestimate the chances of black. But And despite a black king getting fully exposed, I'm sure Gek can, with his vast experience, can hold on to the position and even give a little run for the money for white in case white is a little bit, relaxing his approach to the game or playing some unquiet moves. It wouldn't do white a big harm despite the king a little bit out in the starting blocks. I'm sure the king will go back to f8 and then a big push for the attack by the white pieces could also be one way where Shyam Sundar could surprise the veteran grandmaster Igor Gleck. So maybe the next 10-15 moves could become very, very critical for the chances of the Indian grandmaster, and we hope he makes the best out of that. And the fifth and final board of the GM Close tournament pits Gyurek Khan against Axel Gergely from Hungary. So this position hasn't moved up much since we saw it last time, but Gergely is, I would say, building a little bit of a tiny bit of edge, which should not be overlooked by white, and unless white needs to be very careful, he would really face the music with black, because Gergely is an extremely well prepared opponent. So he could easily fend off those movements so that black somehow finds its way out of the trouble. But right now, the position is quite comfortable, but we could see that the pieces, most of them, the rook, the knight, the bishop, and the queen, and the rook, are still on the shed. They need to come out of the blocks, because we could see only the bishop and the knight has moved a little bit for black, but rest of all the pieces are, I would say, comfortably sleeping inside the starting block. So unless black is expecting a different result, we could see that it's better for black to regroup his pieces and give white a real run for the money. Let us now go to the I Am Closed tournament, which is happening quite close by. The first game that we happened to saw a little while ago is again a repeat between Lucas Straightner under the black pieces and Enis Zuferi under the white pieces. And we could see that despite having played close to 13 moves, white has somehow not managed to, break the confidence of black. Right now, we could see that the pileup of white pieces on the queen side would definitely be a huge headache for black, and if the alert guard is being let down, then he would be prepared to really face the music. This time around, we could see that once white castles and tries to push all the pieces on the queen side, because with castling on either side of the board, it gives the one player all the possibilities to push the pieces around, either by random or by rash attack. Whichever be the case, if it could end in a checkmate, then the player himself will be extremely happy to get it done. The next board on the IM section pits Nichols Petriashvili against Darshan G. We had seen the game a little until the middle, and then we will see how it went. You could see that Black is quickly trying to regroup his pieces, but despite that, I would say that Black still needs some bit of homework to do. Because the outset of the pawn push on the queen side is also a good idea, because grabbing the open file has been the trend for the white player for a long time, but players like Darshan could really turn it around. And we could see that immediately the queen landing upon b7 with you could see that white is all the more comfortable, and by regrouping his both the rooks and the queen, white has probably a little bit allowed Black to equalize, and then now we could see that both white and Black will have to really work very hard to induce some mistakes on the opening area, which could result or go on to impact the Black. The next game is between Petro Loginov and Kulner Ruben Gideon. As we saw some time back, nothing much has moved out here, and probably one player who has to play is on a long think, because the pawn on c3 is under attack, and it would help to somewhat defend, or if white is quite an attacking player and willing to go there, then he could probably ignore the pawn attack and then go about his own way, developing a piece. And followed by the Kulner game, we could see that former Indian amateur national champion Hemant Ram finds himself facing Robert Zisk. And Robert has, I would say, a decent middle game where neither player is worse. So it will all come down to some bit of original stuff, which would really help one player to go for the initiative and the satisfactory of getting things done the way they want to get it done. So here we could see that Robert Zisk has slowly but steadily trying to tighten the noose around the Black after a short castle a little while ago. What we could see here is that the bishop coming out on b2 would be a good bit of defense for the pawn. But then with a3 followed by a blockade of a5, Black is all the more concerned to basically to avoid defeat, and then if possible, if your opponent does a mistake, then they will go on to grab the win. So a little bit of a, I would say, not a very positive way to look at it, but there are some players who are like that. And followed by this Robert Zisk and Hemant Ram, we have Elias Underlich playing the black pieces, facing Walter Richard and facing the white pieces. And the game has probably entered a considerable length with black completing the 15-move mark and going for a short break from Hemant Ram, who is also playing the other tournament. And we will now shuffle ourselves to the Open tournament, which is, of course, more like, the first among equals, where the talent of one is matched with the other, whereby the huge elo outnumbering will be neutralized. But looking at this position, Thomas Hefelsauer should indeed be quite satisfied with what he has brought up upon himself. So, but then at the same point of time, he would still need to improvise slowly but steadily, because you could see that all the 8 pawns are still blocking the way, whereas the two one full open and one half open file for black is definitely going to give a good bit of counterplay for black, and who would probably want to release the bishop on c8 and then play g5. And I could see that while black has got multiple plans, white is really getting stuck getting something done here. But I'm sure Thomas Hilsafer would find something to keep the Indian junior in check. The next game is the game between Novak Djokovic and Rach Thomas. And we could see that suddenly, subsequent to the last observation we made, there has been a huge dip in the evaluation where Thomas Rach is probably close to winning. How come this? We will now go and see what happened. The trade-off of bishops, the fianchettoed one protecting the black king, has taken place, and the king has been dragged a little bit into the g7, and immediately a tempting move by white, trying to somewhat finish off the whole stuff, so that he ending up losing a piece. Well, not a happy one that Novak would have wanted, but he kind of brought it upon himself. So there's nobody to blame except you when you kind of, give up a piece. And then, well, that's it, because these days the competition is so very high, and because of which giving up a piece is almost suicidal. So with that, we will take a short break, and we'll be back soon. Stay tuned with us. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So here we are after a short break with more games and more excitement out in the open. Let us first go on to the Grandmaster closed event, where you could see that the game that we happened to see a little while ago, where Rich Thomas has shot himself in the foot by giving up a piece, and then it's as good as done. We would now go to the top board between Miller Edward and Ashot Paravnyan. We have come to probably, a little bit into the middle game after the opening spell, when it's still roughly going equal, but Black's king side is out in the open, and then it's still a huge bit of material around to play for. We have all the pieces, the minor pieces and the major pieces are around there, and then except for the 2 pawns traded off, we have the rest. So that's still some bit of work for Paravnyan Ashot to do. We will now shuffle to the next game between a Grandmaster title aspirant from India, S. Ashwath, who in fact made a big news a couple of months back when he won the Runde Open ahead of a huge number of famous grandmasters, and took, I think, the first prize of euros 20,000. So that was indeed a huge bit of a turnaround for the boy. I'm sure bigger things are awaiting him in the near future. He, along with his mentor and coach, Grandmaster Shyam Sundar, have turned up in Munich to play the Munich Airport GM Close tournament. And today being the first day, and both the guys have come directly from playing another close tournament in Budapest. So they have traveled all the way overnight and then landed up here and jumped upon to play the game. So far so good, and thanks for all their big efforts in coming up to play the game in great spirits. And this game, as we saw, the French won. The queens were off early, which shows that the boy is full of confidence in terms of handling the middle game without the queen. As we used to see Vladimir Kramnik, the former world champion, who used to be a master in playing the queenless middle games. So it's a sign of a young mind which is strong enough to handle the delicacies of this bit of calculation, whereby they are improving upon their skills and confidence in one go. So here we are into the game where it's still roughly very equal, and then we could see that Ashwath, by deciding to castle long, is willing to stick his neck out and play for a win with the kind of risk that could come along with such bit of exposure. So, and it always helps not to underestimate your opponent, whatever be the case where because you got to play the position on the board or not the person across the board. So that way I'm sure Ashwath would be more mature to handle the positions and be guided suitably by his mentors and coaches. And his dad, who is himself is an excellent player and a coach. So, third board in the GM section between Duong Quang Bach and Steutner Moritz has come a little far away from what we had seen last time ago, and we could see that both the white and black have made inroads into it, and both are willing to pick up their chances, because we could see that the black knight has strayed so far into the white territory, and not to be undone, white has also moved up quite heavily into the black area. Possibly white may have some small advantage, because black still has got two pieces to develop. The bishop on f8 and rook on h8 are still not out of the starting blocks. Not a good sign. But with no apparent weaknesses and no great plans of white to attack the black fortress, it's not going to trouble them much, but they can't leave it like that for long. And further, we could also see that black is down by more than 30 minutes compared to the 64 minutes that Duong Quang Bach has on the clock. Moritz has just about 32, so this is almost double the time his opponent has, which is going to have a big say as the game proceeds further, since this is a one-go time control finish game. So I'm sure Moritz will be wise enough to pick up his moves faster and come up with some plan where his huge deficit of the time will not undo him in terms of the result of the game. And as we next go to the game between Grandmaster Shyam Sundar Mohan Raj and Igor Glek from Belgium, we could see that the game has moved into an end game where white has a clear pawn advantage and has better of the chances. But still, as pieces keep getting reduced more and more, it could possibly be a hopeful draw for the veteran on the black pieces. But then again, he could look into the time factor, because Igor has got just about 22 minutes compared to the 68 on clock with Shyam. So that is going to have a huge say in just about a short while from now. So it will be much better for Igor Glek if he could really force the draw. Otherwise, he's going to face the music, because Shyam is an extremely experienced player who's not going to leave his chances. And he has a 4 versus 2 pawn structure on the queen side. And the king side for black is saddled with a doubled pawn, followed by the bishop and the rook. The c8 bishop is yet to come out of the starting blocks, and then the rook on h8 is very much into the shed. So these two factors also may probably influence Igor to play something very quick, because the countdown is really like a gun on the head, and unless Belgian does something quick, he's really going to face I would say, huge trouble, not only in terms of time, but in terms of position, because the lesser the time, the greater the difficulty to, spot the right move. And with the panic buttons on, it's going to be more mistakes and then a quick wrap-up of the game. But with his vast experience behind him, I'm sure he would try to somehow save the game and not start the tournament with a defeat. And then the final board on the GM closed here in Munich airport Thomas tournament, we find that Durek Khan applying SL Gergely from Hungary. The Hungarian Grandmaster is still on the back foot because most of his pieces, except for maybe two minor pieces of the bishop and knight, are still very much into the starting blocks. And unless he could really do something about it, because he had gone the pawns moving a little far away, which is not too bad, but then the pieces are the real thing. So it would do him some good to really buck up his piece play and shake up White's plans, because White appeared to be very solid, but for White to go ahead and go on to win the game as well, he's really need to come up with some plan. And here we could see that unusually, despite having I would say, not a bad position at all, White is consuming tons of time and may probably land up in time pressure in a short while from now, unless Durek Khan is careful about it, because he has just got about 22 minutes to 60 in case of Gergely. So it's almost thrice the amount of time he has given his opponent. And considering the fact that only 11 moves have been played so far, it comes as a big surprise that Durek is still, not moving fast to save himself in the game. Let us now move on to the IM closed tournament, where the top board has Enis Zuferi playing Lukas Stettner. And as they are about to enter the middle game, we could see that White has still decided to keep his king in the center, whereas Black has parked the king on the queen side with a long castle, despite knowing that White has a fully occupied rook in the b file, which could trigger, some bit of a laser attack on a later stage, because the queen could easily jump into b3, and then it could pass a diagonal attack along with the bishop, and in no time Lukas will find himself in deep trouble. So unless he's going to guard himself and the position pretty well, or probably, the unpleasant king walk back to the center through d7, e8 and f8 could also probably save him the game. But whatever be the case, it's better for Lukas to stay alert and save himself and the game, because right now it's pretty much equal. But such kind of laid back attitude can come with a let down at some point of time. So it will be better for Black to be very, very cautious, and then see to it that the safety of the king is of paramount importance, and he could somehow find a plan, because all of the hidden pieces, the white, one on g3, the bishop who is cutting across the diagonal right up to the b8, and then the bishop on d3 that could go to the a6, and then this queen could come here and pile up an attack along with the rook. So all these things indicate that a huge bit of camouflage from white, which hopefully if black spots early, then he could find a plan to save the king. Otherwise, he might get a little doomed, and nothing to regret but his own choices or decisions that let him down. Next game sees the game between a young Indian boy and IM Norm aspirant, G. Darshan, who is playing with Nichols Petriashvili. Nichols is, with white pieces, has expanded pretty well. His position is, I would say, very comfortable. And then probably at some point of time, he is maybe willing to strike when the position is ripe, because the center for black might fall any time, and then somehow the white pieces are looking a little bit more menacing, because they are hidden and waiting for the open up of the files to attack. So black needs to be extremely alert, and if the guard is a little down, then he could possibly start the game with a loss, the tournament with a loss. So I guess Darshan should show a little more alert in trying to save the game, because the middle game looks a little bit shaky for black. Unless white loosens the grip, black is really going to face the music, the later stages of the game. Moving on to the next one, the game between Petro Loginov and Kulner Ruben Gideon. Again, after possibly around 13 moves of play, where a little bit out of the opening, we could say that white and black have their own difficulties and disadvantages. Black has a lone isolated pawn on e6, and white has a doubled pawn on c3. So I would say the disadvantage is roughly equal on both sides because of the doubled pawn and one isolated pawn on e8. And black has two knights to the knight and bishop from white. But still it's a long way to go, because the end games of rook has huge chances many times for both players, because the rook plays down the ending like a god. So with one single rook, there have been thousands of games that got saved from defeat. But in this case, we could say that the position is absolutely equal, with a slightly awkward pawn structure for both of them. And the two knights could always jump upon adjacent to each other and create a lot of threats and dangers. So it would be wise for white not to underestimate the black's chances. At the same time, should keep pressing for more and try to eliminate the weaknesses as quickly as possible. Next we have the game between Robert Zisk and Hemant Ram. Hemant is a highly talented player, and he's a former Indian amateur champion, the national amateur champion from India. He has got one IM norm that he got from the IM circuit tournaments, the 50 plus tournaments imagined and visualized by the president of Tamil Nadu State Chess Association, Dr. Manikam, which has brought about pretty much good results for both Indians and foreign players. And Hemant is one of the beneficiaries, having got his first and only norm there. And here he has been playing the circuit in Budapest. So Hemant, along with Shyam and Ashwath, they had actually played in Budapest just about until 2 days back. And now they have traveled all the way, completing the tournament, and then we find the trio playing here. The higher rated ones and the Grandmaster are playing the GM closed, and Hemant, along with another Indian boy, Darshan, is playing in the IM closed. Here today we could see that both white and black try to play some bit of a risk-free game, but the biggest surprise could be the time factor again. We could see that Robert Zisk has 63 minutes, and then Hemant has got just about a little more than 12 minutes. So that's quite a serious disadvantage the Indian is facing, and then going under the 12-minute mark, he has got really got to do something about it. Otherwise, he will get consumed by time and nothing else. So nobody would simply want to lose on time when the position is nothing but equal, or probably a mini school edge for black. But since we are actually playing the tournament on a single time control, black's position will slowly become suicidal if he's not going to think himself out of the huge time pressure he has walked himself into. So maybe when we come to the review the next time, we will hope to see some bit of balance in time where quick moves by Hemant could save himself and the game. As we go for the final position of the IM Close tournament, we have Richard Walter playing with Elias Wunderlich. Richard with white pieces has, I would say, quite a decent position with both the bishops occupying their important diagonals and the knight. And the position offers multitude of possibilities despite a very equal material on both the sides, because the two rooks, two bishops and a knight, along with 7 pawns, might not tell the real story, because the position is rich with content, and I'm sure players like Anatoly Karpov or Petrosyan or Capablanca would love to play such positions because of the myriad of possibilities that the end game holds from what we see now. So such kind of positions used to be the favorite of former world champion Capablanca, who has time and again outwitted a huge number of players in ending in a very, very innocuous way. So that way, I would say that both Richard and Elias would probably do well to take the game into an end game which holds a quite rich possibility for both. The Wunderlich should be happy here, because I could see that Walter Richard is walking into the landmine of time, because Elias Wunderlich playing with the black pieces has got 70 minutes and Richard Walter has got 4. This is nothing less than shocking, and I'm sure it's a huge wake-up call for Richard, and probably he's already done, because despite holding to a pretty decent position, he might surely run out of time, because 4 minutes in this kind of sudden finish, even with a 30-second increment, will probably not be enough. I'm sure if Richard is going to save this game, I wouldn't mind giving him a treat, because he has got too lesser time to really think himself and the player to even draw the game. So I would really fancy the chances of Elias here, but let us see if Walter Richard would earn his treat from the commentator here. As we go on to the open section, we could see a little more balance between the top board player, Thomas Shore, playing with TL Nikhil. Well, it's still no files open for the black player from India, as some bit of chances because of his single rook file open, whereas Thomas still is playing well into himself. But the Indian boy has a significant advantage in time, which probably is going to be the unseen opponent in many games that we have seen so far, because I could see that the lack of time is going to be a deadly one for many players, that the games that we saw a little while ago. So Thomas would also be, suitably warned that his 10 minutes to 59 from Nikhil will be an uneven battle unless he could force himself into a result with a draw or a win or something like that. He is really going to face the music, if not already facing it. And then we could see that the next game where Novak blundered a piece has indeed quit, possibly in cursing himself for not looking into something that is not too difficult to spot. But then chess blindness is, I would say, is a malady or a small disease that has spared no one. So right from the world number 1 to world champion, in the past and in the present, people have been affected with partial or full chess blindness, where they would simply lose the game and find themselves cursing for having missed such a golden chance. So I'm sure Novak would return tomorrow a wise man, but still he may possibly be losing his sleep tonight. Next we have Krasnikov playing Namik. This game, as we could see, offers white better chances because Calvin Wolf is still too drastically down on time, and quite possibly, I guess, he went on to lose on time. So it's another game where the time has a big role to play. And we have Birke Dennis playing with Jochen Schwellman. Quite an interesting one with two knights and a bishop with facing two bishops and a knight, and with double rooks on either side. Here, Birke really doesn't have a big advantage, but then I could see that in most cases the younger opponent tries to press very hard with limited resources and then goes bust. So I just hope that Jochen wouldn't do such things and be wise enough to take a draw when things are still possible. The next game between Ferdinand Petzelberger and Christopher Stuer. Again, the time, I would say, the poison of the time is consuming so many players who probably are outthinking their given time or probably unable to come to terms with the shorter time control as some of the leading grandmasters who played in the past have seen, because the shorter or the reduced time control is something that would do any player good unless they come to terms to the quick chess early. They're going to really face the music. I could remember the 7 times Indian national champion Praveen Tipse, who was a major casualty when the time controls got reduced initially from 2 hour 40 moves, 2.5 hours 40 to 2 hours 40, and then 90 minutes to 40, and then until the end of his career, he was never able to come to terms with such changes or reduction of time. So here we could see probably the 4th or 5th game where the player simply goes down, even in positions that doesn't hold too much of magic. So that way I could see that Christopher is probably started thinking about his game tomorrow, because he's got too little time to save himself today. And the final board on the open section has David Kovacs playing the other David Sedelmaier. And here you could see that it's another game where one player found himself having too little time and then went on to lose the game. So with that, we have come to the second set of review of the game of the IM closed and GM closed and that of the open section. We would take a short break and then we'll be back soon. Please don't go away, and more excitement is in the offing from Munich. Stay put, have your refreshments, and then be back soon. in the Atomis Munich Grandmaster closed and IM closed and Open tournament. So we had got quite a number of interesting games happening. In our third set of review, we will just about go back to the first game of the Grandmaster Closed tournament. We have Ashot Paravian playing Edward Miller. And we had seen right through the middle game. And as we had seen a little while ago, most of these games, it is the time that produces the biggest casualty, because the stronger players are more prepared in terms of the opening, and because of which somehow they eke themselves out of the difficulties, or rather they play it safe. And the younger and the less experienced ones go all out to defeat the stronger ones and ultimately get defeated themselves. Quite unfortunate, but these are hard lessons that they would do well to learn. Because it is for the higher rated player to really risk himself or herself the rating, the hard-earned rating they have got, to prove that they are one up above the others. Because there are some leading examples in recent times, like the young ones, like Arjun Erigaisi or Vincent Keimer, whom we see that they risk lock, stock and barrel and go out to win. In the process, they also lose sometimes, but their hard-earned name and fame and rating would definitely stand the test of time. Because there is no easy way out, and hard ways really to squeeze your last drop of energy and effort into getting the right kind of results. As we now go to the next game between Ashwat, the Indian boy who has got 2 GM norms, and Zaur Hassanov. And in Zaur's game, we could see that just about into the middle game, and still neither side is worse. And then further down, it's Duong Quang Bach and Moritz Stettner, where again Moritz found himself running out of time, unfortunately, when possibly the position could be nothing more than, no demon in the position. Further down we get 2 grandmasters, Shyam Sundar Mohan Raj, who's been achieving a huge success in the last couple of years, thanks to...
I'm not sure if you're having the actual games, because
Correct.
it looks like maybe this one is not sending. See when it has last been updated. 13 minutes ago.
Okay.
So
how do you get it refreshed?
So something is off. Okay, just continue. I check.
Yeah, because I see the moves have not been updated. So here we are looking at kind of a deep study, an end game between Shyam Sundar and Igor Gleck. Quite possibly the ending is loaded in favor of white because largely because of the time and even otherwise white has got a huge space advantage and could maneuver itself out of any problem that could crop up time to time. As we now move on to the last game on the Grandmaster close section, it could also be worth mentioning that today we have the one of the biggest tournaments of the year, the FIDE Rapid and Blitz Championships happening in Doha in Qatar, where most of the top guys are playing, including world number one Magnus Carlsen. So the first 3 days we'll have the Rapid Championships with 13 rounds and followed by 2 days of Blitz. And you get 2 world champions, one for the Rapid and one for the Blitz. And we were looking into the game between Durak Khan and Axel Gergely, the Grandmaster from Hungary. We could say that White has significantly improved his chances, but Black is no easy cup of tea. So we still have a good fight on hands because the time factor is also not too badly loaded for both of them. You could see that White, it's Black's turn to play, so Black can maybe defend the pawn and then white could just pile it up upon the maybe the right way to. So white has got multiple threats, like continuously he can harass the black pieces and really get going. And the earlier game that we happened to see that between Grandmaster Shyam Sundar and Igor Glak. So there is a slight change of position that we happened to see a little while ago compared to what it is now, where the Grandmaster from Chennai has managed to gain the upper hand, getting the exchange in favor of white. He has got two rooks compared to the rook and a bishop. And then, of course, the pawn structure for black isn't too favorable for Igor Glak as well. But still it's a little tricky, as we have seen quite a number of games in the rook and bishop versus rook, whereby if the liquidation goes to one by one, and finally left with, just rook versus bishop for the rook, then it's not going to be easy at all. Though there are cases where when pressed very hard, some player blundering their way to loss, but by and large it could also end in a draw. But with 5 pawns around, the possibilities of white winning is still huge, and could be a good result for Shyam to start with a win. And then we have the game between Duan Quang Bach and Moritz Tittner. So here we could see that the position for the white king isn't too good. It's in the crossroads, or rather in the highway, where it is susceptible for huge attacks. And truly, the defenses for the white are very far and few. The rook on h2 should be pretty much miserable, because the knight is around, the rook cannot come out. And even trading the knight could possibly give a winning passed pawn for black. So as good as rook down is what white is now. And then in addition, the king position is pretty much worse. And then the lonely king in the center has only himself to defend, and no great support from all the 4 scattered pieces. So I think Duan Quang batch is almost done, and Moritz Tittner probably will be getting his first win today. And then the double grandmaster arm holder S. Ashwath could breathe easy. He just overcame the time difficulties, and then is now facing a very reasonable position with rooks and opposite color, not opposite rooks, the same colored bishops with 5 versus 6. So it's not all that difficult, and because he's going to get that 1 pawn up again, so it's going to be equal pawns and very, very equal position. So maybe the coach Shyam will go on to win the game, whereas Ashwath might draw. So 1.5 out of 2 for the coach and student is not exactly a bad start for the Munich closed tournament. And in the first board, we could see that Ashot Parvanyan greatly improvising his position from what it was to what it is now. But Ashot is just about having a minute and 42 seconds compared to 40 minutes for Edward Millard. So unless he's going to weave some bit of magic, Ashot will probably be yet another victim succumbing to time. Or he would need to kind of play out the whole game one by one, just by the 30-second increment, which is going to, take a toll on him. As we move on to the IM closed tournament, the top board game between Enis Zuferi and Lukas Stettner. It looks more going in favor of white, because largely because of the black king in not exactly a safe place, and the huge space advantage and the positioning of white pieces. Everything points to a significant advantage for white, which I'm sure Zuferi and his wouldn't leave. The second board saw the first results in where the Indian boy Darshan, aspiring for the IM norm, went down to Petriashvili Nicholas with black pieces. So the position we could see on hand is something where there is a mate in 2, and it could be a very difficult one to avoid, because f6 is falling, f7 is falling, and followed by g8 mate, and even just giving by the knight is not going to really help black. So Darshan resigned. The third board on the IM closed tournament saw the Loginov Petrov and Kilner Ruben Gideon ending in a draw. It still has something to play for black, because white's pawn on the queen side are pretty messy, and somehow black is unwilling to push. Then comes the game between Hemant Ram and Robert Zisk. Robert with white pieces is, I would say, in some bit of trouble, because black's position has vastly improved. And Hemant is not someone who is going to leave the chances once they come his way. So, because you could see that black's pieces are all the more focused, and somehow the defenses on the king for the white are slowly falling apart. So we could see that Robert Zisk would need to do something very fast. If not, he would find himself losing the game very soon. And now we come to Walter Richard and Elias Wanderlich. Here, black has somehow managed to improve its position from what it was a little while ago when probably Wanderlich was less than a minute on time, and somehow the panic had set in, and he appeared to be probably on the way out, losing this game. But then somehow he made those required moves, and then and now he looks like saving the game itself. And probably even go on to win, because White's bishop is in bad shape. So it's like a bad bishop versus good bishop, and the active rook on the e file is also going to play a vital role in taking black to a win. You could see that further down, possibly a rook to a6, and bishop c5, king e2 attacks the rook, the rook goes to c1, and then bishop f1. Finally, the bishop is trying to save itself and survive. bd4, and you can see slowly but steadily there's threats are always there. So Walter Richard has got some bit of significant work to save his position. If not, he'll find himself in some difficulty or other. We now go to the open section, where the top board pits the Indian boy with Thomas Hofelsauer. After nearly 3 hours of play, it's still equal, and it goes to the credit of Nikhil that he has managed to hold a stronger player in such a lengthy duel. But the bishop on h2 sounds a little bit offside, and unless something comes up, it could be a little difficult for White, because it could become a bad bishop after some time. But still, no great worry as of now, because all threats are neutralized, and all weaknesses can be probably set right as well. So we could see that White has at last played knight to f3, and then maybe black has some choices. Rook to d8 can be played, and an intervening move because of the pin comes to support the rook, and this pawn falls. So that offers some bit of a spark of life for White, who can probably make things difficult for Black. And we could see that the game between Novak Vyacheslav And Rick Thomas has ended in favor of the black. And despite white going for a last minute push and pushing all his pieces forward, it is not given the desired result for white. And the next one saw that Nami Krasnikov go on to defeat Calvin Wolf. Largely because the king was cut off and the white king becoming an active piece would now grab the pawn on b6 and would go on to help queen the c6 pawn and then effectively settle the score in favor of white. And then the game between Birke Dennis and Jochen Schoelmann, it's two knights versus rook ending, but then this one is largely favoring the white, and black ending up saving the game is very remote. So we have to wait and see if the plan for black to save would never bear fruit, because white has a huge advantage, and then this is little too much to expect some miracle to come and save the game. So I guess the best way for black will be save the energy for the next game. The game between Ferdinand Petzelberger and Stuart Christopher has seen almost the number of moves that a mini game might have required. So unless black could come up with something fresh, the most likely result could be a draw in this position, because white has got quite a number of pieces on hand, and but he hasn't found a way to move them into the battle. And how do you expect someone else to get the job done? Because it's clearly written for black as to what Christopher needs to do. So to save the game, you need to go to the basics and then start up one by one. I'm sure it's not all that difficult, but they would still need to play a very tight game. And I'm sure Christopher Stewart will be able to save the game. The next match saw David Kovacs playing and losing the game to David Sedlmayr. The queen rook ending somehow went not so much in favor of white, but in favor of black. Here you see black is making serious inroads into the white territory, and the white's final plan for a checkmate never got him anything. And the ultimate sacrifice, quite a huge one, that of the rook, also did that person in, because ultimately what needs to be done needs to be done. It doesn't matter whether the result comes or not. So that way, if you could see that in this position, it was clear that white was lost, and there is no way that he could actually save the game, so he just called it quits. Going back to the GM closed tournament, we could see that the top board still has some very interesting play and fight going on between Enis Zuferi and Lukas Stittner with a little more than equal position for white. So what is there? And then we could see that rest of the games we had Darshan who lost and Kulner drew. And Hemant Ram is probably applying for his second time now very strongly, and he has got nothing to worry about. The position is pretty good, and he's got a minor advantage, I'm sure, sufficient for Hemant to work on, and expect him to put it across Robert Zisk. And then the final game in the GM closed is between Richard Walter and Wunderlich Elias, where, as we have seen before, not much of a changes come by. So it's still a lot of hard work. So these three games are in focus, and you could see that how we will move to the GM closed and see what Ashwath has been doing. So it's again, Ashwath and Hassanov is nothing more than a draw because of same pawns and rook and bishop of same color, and all of them facing each other. So unless there is going to be a blunder somewhere in between, and it could quite possibly end in a draw. The Shyam Sundar Igor game between two grandmasters from India and Belgium also promised a lot, but right now we could see that Igor is just hanging there and making things very difficult for Shyam. And in the final board of the GM closed tournament, Duracan is really giving Hazel Gerkuli a run for the money. So Hazel is really facing the music, and then it could be very hard to stop the pawn getting the queen. So slowly but steadily, you could see that the pawns in the center could actually turn things around, but the exchange is always an exchange. So I'm sure Duracan would want to settle things well and go on to win the game. So with this, we will take a short break, and then we will just about get back in about maybe 5 or 10 minutes time.